Greetings and salutations, fellow possessors of blistered fingers and fight stick fanatics. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the Heater.
And me. Hey.
And my partner in crime, the boy. This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and the Heater is still going. We've been waiting for like 10 minutes for it to shut the fuck up. But it's that cold snap, baby. I don't know when y'all are going to see this, hear this. I mean, you can look. I make thumbnails. But we're recording this in early April when Ohio is experiencing a week of, gosh, it sure is chilly. So if it's July and you're like, why the fuck the heater on? That's why. Before we get into the top 5 goodness, there's some links in the description. If you click them and then spend money at the places you find when you go there, that would make me very happy. You could be like Rob, who supports us on Patreon.
Thanks, Rob.
Speaking, this is a fighting games podcast. I've been getting a lot of comments for our channel on my old Violent Profiles videos. And you know the best way to encourage me to make a Violent Profiles video above commenting? That paper.
It's very blunt.
It is a lot of effort.
No, I know.
A lot of effort. And I'm bad at editing, so even more effort than most creators.
And this channel isn't monetized, so you get no money out of it.
I get nothing out of it except for the satisfaction, which is great. But, I mean, you're going to have to give me a little encouragement to be like, yeah, make your Violent Profile video. Talk about biofreaks.
Do talk about biofreaks.
Biofreaks, man, Biofreaks has got a... The setting feels a little real post-2020. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Biofreaks as much as Sapo is somewhere on my top 50 fighting game characters of all time. We're here to talk about our top 5 each favorite fighting game characters of all time as part of our year of top 5s leading up to a final carved in stone, laminated, I'm sorry you don't get to sleep with that ice skating lady Ross. Is that what she was? Ice skating?
I don't fucking know.
Anyway, list that can never be changed and we have to live with it for the rest of our lives.
I didn't sign on for this.
It's all sarcasm. This is all at the moment, unless we forgot somebody. And then I play a fighting game for a few hours, and I'm like, you know what? I fucking love this guy instead. Never mind.
Friendship ended with X. Now Y is my best friend.
It's just fun to explore what we like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Something that was easier in our teens and 20s, and now we're old and not as attached to media. So it's like, I mean, yeah, it's all fine.
So, like, having to go through and actually rank shit, which isn't something I typically do anymore, is hard.
Yeah.
But this one didn't take me long.
Me either, surprisingly. I'm a little surprised with who came out on my list, but let's start with you. I like to start with you because I know I can be long-winded, so I'd rather give you some spotlight, my friend. Who's your number 5?
Akuma from Street Fighter. There are a couple reasons he's here. One, he's cool as fuck. Just in case you weren't aware, Akuma's cool as fuck. He has the coolest outfit in Street Fighter. He is the coolest dude. Secondly, when I'm thinking of my favorite fighting game characters, I want a character I like who I also like playing. If I think they're the coolest guy ever, but their mechanics blow, I'm never going to actually spend any time with them. So it has to be someone who I like, who I also like playing. And I like Shoto clones. I like basically all of them, even Dan. I think they're a fun fighting game playing style. And Akuma's the best. So Akuma gets on the list.
I mean, you don't really need much more than that, you know? It's not like we need to wax poetic about our justifications for all these characters. So he go on list. Me like 5-ish.
And I do like Akuma, about a 5. In terms of top 5.
Right on. Well, I suppose I'll go in mine. My number 5 is a surprise entrant from Killer Instinct. Not a fighting game I'm ridiculously fond of, but a good one. It's been in our fighting game tournaments in the past. That is Hisako from the Xbox.
That's the Samara one, right?
Yeah, the ghost lady.
Yeah.
I like her story. I like her, desire for revenge, and I like her mechanics just fine. The buttons I push to make her do shit are comfortable enough in my hands. Mm-hmm. More importantly, I enjoy the fact that her moveset is so creative. I like that she is a jump scare. I like that I can possess you and contort your body. Like, it's just really good visuals. I feel good kicking ass with her.
Yeah, look, the cool factor is something that cannot be overstated.
Yeah. The cool factor is, I mean, okay, I mentioned violent profiles earlier. Heater's finally calming down. It's been another fucking 5 minutes. And it's only just calming down. I mentioned violent profiles earlier. The whole reason I started that series was because I love fighting game characters. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to a tournament, and if I do, I sure as hell am not going to win. I'm okay at fighting games. Maybe pretty good. But, like, I don't have the head for the data, man. Or memorizing combos, or strings, or counters, or whatever. I just push the buttons and I have a good time. But I love the characters. There's something about fighting game characters that is so elementally interesting, and all the different, facets of personalities and ideas that they cover. So that cool factor is like, they're like pro wrestling personas,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wouldn't be good if they were all Shoto clones, but I'm fine that we have like 7 of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hisako is my number 5. Who is in your number 4 slot, friend?
Number 4 is... I wanted to have someone from Mortal Kombat on this list because Mortal Kombat is a really good fighting game series. And so I was looking through and thinking, who do I like? Whose character do I like who I also like playing the best? And then I remembered that this character exists, so he wins. Aaron Black. He's from X, I believe is when he was introduced, Mortal Kombat 10.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really fun. He's got a really good kit focused on maintaining your distance and like zone control, which is very at odds with my typical playstyle in fighting games. I'm much more of a run at your face, block is for cowards type of player. But he's really fun to play. He's really fun to sort of control the battlefield with, and he's a cool cowboy. And cool cowboys cannot be overstated in how cool they are. He's got like a very cool aesthetic. He's got a very interesting character. He's like a mercenary, which is a good character to have in a Mortal Kombat. A lot of these people are already very personally invested in all these murders. It's nice to have someone contrastingly who's not.
I like that summary. He's got a lot of great outfits in MK11. I don't know if I like his fighting style as much there.
They changed it a little bit, and I'm not as fond.
No. But and Mortal Kombat 10, he feels a lot like Deadshot in Injustice 2.
Yes.
Heavy on the zoning with a
more
lot
balanced.
of unpredictable projectiles. Deadshot's actually more balanced, I think. I think you can avoid Deadshot easier.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you get a lot of kids playing the game, and they get mad because, they're children. They don't understand fighting games. I don't understand fighting games, and they suck more. Speaking of which, all you motherfuckers online who just squat near me and light punch forever, go to bed. My number 4 is a Street Fighter character, Juri Han. Before I understood fighting games a bit better, I knew that I liked kicks. And it's because I like a good reach. I also like moves that flow well. It's just small apocalypse, don't worry about it. And Juri Han's got great combos, very kick heavy with that long reach, a lot of good flow to him.
Really cool character.
Very cool. I love her personality. She's like a badass. And usually the sexier characters, because she is very, as part of her personality, pervy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
aggressive.
Yes. You would normally use a more complimentary term when a lady is being a pervert, but she's a pervert. That's a great way of putting it.
She's a sex pest who might murder you.
Yes.
I don't know. She just pulls it off with a lot of style, and like the clear emotional distance she has from all things is very interesting. She reminds me of what if we made Vega today.
Yeah, Vega almost ended up on my list, actually.
I love Vega. He's one of my favorites. Like, again,
I don't like playing
20.
Vega. That's the reason he's not on there.
That's the big change, especially the changes they made to him in Street Fighter V. I don't really care for his moveset anymore. But Juri Han I still like. I think she's cool. I think she's classy. And I think she's scary. And I put her on the list so she didn't hurt me. Because she's real.
Okay. I'm going to get hurt. My number 3 is the first character who is a combo of really loving their mechanics. On this list, he's probably my second favorite mechanics-wise. And really liking the character a lot, too. More so than just they're cool. I really like Raphael from from Soul Calibur. He's got I really like his mechanic set. Notably, it's the mechanics that I use for the creative character I make of myself in every Soul Calibur game, because we traditionally do that so that we can fight. But
all you out there shipping us? No, we fight.
So, like, I really like the reach. I really like the speed and precision involved, and he is much more my typical playstyle, where he is about just forward momentum, because he's a fencer. I really like that. But I also really like Raphael's character. I like the very sort of Byron-esque, sort of tortured hero vibe he's got going. He's some kind of weird vampire that's never really elaborated on super well, because Japan has, at best, a loose relationship with the vampire mythology.
I liked when he was Nightmare in Soul Calibur 5. I thought that was a cool take, and I wish they'd done something better with it, like making Nightmare fight more like him.
Yeah, because he was the guy in the Nightmare suit, but Nightmare still fought the same, which I actually didn't like, because Nightmare fought like that because Siegfried fought like that.
Yeah, I liked the concept. I just don't feel like the execution was great. I think you really could have gone places with like
because like when Cervantes was the Nightmare, he fought like Cervantes.
Yeah.
I also would have liked it a lot better if they had made him maybe not like a full fencer set, because he's still much more powerful now.
Well, and like, I mean, make him like a Castlevania Dracula.
Yeah, Castlevania Dracula. That is exactly what I wanted out of him being Nightmare, and they didn't deliver, and it upsets me. But I really like him. I like his story in general. I like Amy, I believe is her name.
Yep.
And I like the way they play off each other, but he's also like the character I am second best with in Soul Calibur. The character I'm best with isn't actually on this list because I don't like his character that much. I just happen to be really good at him. But
who is that?
Maxi.
Oh yeah, Maxi.
I'm fucking unstoppable with Maxi, but he's just kind of a replaceable anime protagonist.
Maxi's the guy you trot out like I trot out the guy next on my list.
Yes.
Number 3 for me is Nightwolf. And this is a recent thing. I've always enjoyed Nightwolf. He's cool. But it wasn't until his release in Mortal Kombat 11 that I really fell in love with his mechanics. There's a great rhythm to how he works. And honestly, y'all gonna come at me with technicalities and be like, no, that's not how this actually works. It's not about like the actual button presses. It's about how it makes me feel to press the buttons. He reminds me a lot of my number 1 slot in terms of comfort. I can pick him up, and I did from the beginning, and go, I get this. And in a similar way to my number 1 character. But I like how they've revamped his story a little bit. I love the graphics he's got in 11. And he just feels really good to play. Really good to beat ass with. He's got that option for reach with his various axes and stuff. He's got some projectiles he can use, which is always fun when I've got someone spamming projectiles at me, and I'm like, all right, you want to play that game? I got a bow. No, heck, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Let's do this. Let's have a loser projectile fight.
Yeah, I'm just overall really solid, really sold on him. I think honestly you could switch Nightwolf and Juri-Han. I think they occupy a similar space. But I've been playing a lot more Mortal Kombat in the last few years than I have Street Fighter, so he hits my number 3 slot.
That's fair enough. My number 2 slot goes to, in a very real way, my first love as a fighting game character. I played fighting games before this game. I did. A couple, here and there. But I really only got into fighting games as a person, only started playing them in any way beyond, like, this is a fun way to pass some time, the first time I played Tekken Tag. And I was picking people kind of at random because I was playing it at, like, my older sister's house. And I was losing because I was playing with adults who, I was a small child, and they believed firmly in the do not let them win, that will only make them spoiled category of teaching children video games, which is a good way to be. And so I finally grabbed somebody who I could spam and win with, and then eventually actually learned and got even better with, and that's Eddie Gordo from Tekken. Eddie Gordo is the character who made me get into more fighting games. I got into Soul Calibur because another person I was hanging out with a lot at the time, my brother-in-law, loved it, and I was like, oh, this feels like Tekken. I was young and didn't know there was a reason for that. Yeah. Because I really liked Tekken Tag. I really liked Eddie Gordo. And, like, I like Yoshimitsu too, but he was mostly backup. And I still love Eddie Gordo. I love his character. I love his... For the Tekken universe, which is ultimately very serious and very self-serious to a large degree, Eddie's not. Eddie's having a great time. And that's good. He's got some darker parts. He's got some pathos, but, like, he's mostly just having a good time. And that's great. I enjoy that. It reminds me more of the wackier parts, but it's not all the way to the wackier parts of, like, a fighting panda bear.
Sure.
I love his mechanics. I love that his mechanics are really new user-friendly. People talk shit about Eddie Gordo like you can just smash buttons and win with him, and you can, and that's good. There needs to be someone like that in a fighting game roster, because, like, you have to get people interested in fighting games, and if everything is incredibly detailed, mechanical, intensive, fucking chess match shit, if there's nobody there who's friendlier to newer players, guess what? You won't have newer players. You can see that in the shrinking, dwindling pools of several fighting games, because they're too hard to get into. I like that Eddie has a lot of mastery available to him, where you can learn his actual mechanics and do much better than someone who's just spamming. Mm-hmm. And I like that he has like 9 versions of him in most versions of Tekken. That's really convenient, because normally that means in a Tekken tag thing where there's a big team, I can have like 3 Eddies. Which,
so long as you have your priorities straight.
Yeah, which makes me happy, because I'm good at him and I want to win. There's not much more there.
Fighting game characters are very simple. I know we're pretty early in the podcast, and we'll make up time talking about our honorable mentions, and I think fighting games in general a little bit here in a minute. My number 2 goes to Devora from Mortal Kombat, another character who debuted in 10. I don't like her moveset as much in 11. But
much like me and Aaron Black.
Yeah, this is not as much as, it's not as different, but this is a similar song to the rest of the people on my list so far. It's about reach. It's about being able to mix up close, but ultimately being able to poke and keep your distance. And,
yeah, a bunch of people do have, like, reach.
Yeah. It's why I liked kicks when I was younger. Oh, I did want to mention, actually, you were saying about the character that made you fall in love with fighting games. For me, it was Blanca.
Yeah, Blanca's good.
He was the first character I beat Street Fighter 2 with in the arcade. Cost me about $20. My brother and I kept trading off. It was a good story. But people were crowded around to actually see an ending. You know, it kind of felt good. But yeah, that got me into really loving fighting games and picking them up and playing at home. Devora, however, is a creepy bug lady. I guess you guys out there in podcast land don't necessarily know me personally. But if you did, after I said, is a creepy bug lady, and there was a long pause, that was you going, I
literally did that, yeah.
She loves her little maggot babies, and she's like part of a collective, and she doesn't give a shit about you humans, and she's duplicitous. She has her own agenda. I like it. I don't know. Just, yeah, good. Oh, and the biggest part of why I really got into it in the first place was the fighting style that had ovipositors, because nothing is better than to psychologically demoralize your opponent with exactly what you're doing to them.
These are my ovipositors. You know what those do? Posit ova.
This is the miracle of childbirth. You experience it. I'm good. My favorite fatality of hers in 11 is when the buggy gets born out of the corpse, because his face is just like, yeah! I exist! Every time I'm like, he's there. Good. Yeah. So, moseying into our number 1 slot, as we usually do, we've got some honorable mentions. As usual, me a few more than the boy.
I like to keep mine shorter, because I end up talking more about them, whereas you end up talking less, so you have a longer list.
Yeah.
I have Ike from Smash Brothers. He's on this and not my main list because I don't give a shit about Ike from Fire Emblem. I don't give a shit about Fire Emblem. I like Ike's mechanics, Ike is incredibly fun to play. I don't give a fuck about Ike as a character, so he doesn't go on the list. Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat for 2 reasons. One, mechanics. I really like Sub-Zero's mechanics, or at least I did. Not so much modern Sub-Zero.
The more time goes on, the more they distance him from what he felt like in early Mortal Kombat. The more I'm like,
I don't like it as much.
no.
But I don't give a shit really about Sub-Zero's character these days. The other reason is nostalgia. Because despite the fact that Eddie was the first fighting game character I loved, for a long time Sub-Zero was my favorite because he's cool as fuck. There's a pun.
It was ice.
Have a good. Calm down about it. All right, good. Are we done? Good. But yeah, he's really awesome. He's got an amazing look. He fucking breathes out frost. That's cool as shit. He's just a really, really well done character. I just don't much like his mechanics, and now that he has more of a person, I usually don't like that person.
He's just a dad.
He's just a dad or a whiny bitch. One of the two.
He's a whiny dad.
Yeah, I don't like it. He's just got a really good look, so he doesn't go on the list. And then the third...
Speaking of ice.
The third is on because of nothing this character did. The third is on this list because it's very funny that he exists. Jin Kisaragi, or Kisaragi, I forget how to pronounce it, from BlazBlue. Yes, the original version, not the one where they patched him. Because we rented fighting games back in the day because...
Those things existed.
Yeah, that was an option of things to do. You would go to a physical store, children, and you would grab a game you wish to play for a limited period of time from a shelf. And you would go to a counter and say to the man, I would like to have this game, but only for a brief period of time for a reduced cost. And the man would say, give me $5, and you may have it for a weekend, and you would give him $5. And for a weekend, that fighting game was yours to behold. And we did that with BlazBlue, because it looked interesting. And we played a bunch with different characters, doing stuff, gravitating towards various different people. We both got kind of a good view of most of the characters. And then I found Jin, who I really liked visually. I like cryokinetics generally. They're cool. Again, let it go. And
There's no pleasing you.
I liked his look. He's very put together, very serious, stern sort of vibe. Fits thematically with Men Who Make Ice. Then I played him.
I'd like to butt in here.
Oh yeah, please, I'm laughing.
That I really enjoy games that have a special button. Okay, I thought it was a really cool addition in Marvel vs. Capcom, and notably a way for a more combo-focused, special ability-heavy game. The boy could push his magic button and do moves. I could input the commands and have the flexibility of different shit. Was it still broken and I lost most of the time? Yes. But it was a cool option. And I like how Injustice and even BlazBlue or BlazBlue, however you want to pronounce it, has that button where it's like, okay, this does different shit depending on what your character is. Batman has his grappling hook and his tech and stuff, or... I've forgotten. Iron Tiger does his charge up magnetic shit.
Yeah.
Except,
ladies and gentlemen, allow me to paint for you a word picture. As we began fighting, I was, doing what I usually do, which is mostly just solid fighting game fundamentals. Much like White here, I'm not very good at fighting games. I just have good twitch reflexes. I'm fairly fast.
You also read people very well, is a big part of it.
So, I don't really need to know much about a fighting game to do okay in it. And that's what I was doing. I was mostly just, using the basic attacks, basic combos, and just doing a lot with positioning, spacing, and having better reflexes than my opponent. But then, as I was playing with Jin over the course of like half a round, I began to notice his special was a little different than everybody else's. Because it was a unblockable, auto-homing, screen-clearing attack that had a really funny, annoying voice line attached to it. Like, it would wipe across the entire screen, auto-home into where you were, and was not blockable. It was the ice car. He would make a big thing of ice right across on it and then hit you and do some damage. Not like a lot of damage, but some damage. It may not have been fully unblockable, but it was hard to block. I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
But most of these specials in BlazBlue have, like, there are still other inputs. You got to play special and directional button, or they're situationally useful. You got to know how to use them to get the best out of them. For ice cars, oh no. One press of the Y button on an Xbox controller allowed me to rocket across the screen and decimate my opponent back and forth no matter where he went. It got to the point that I was literally laying on the floor, cackling, unable to breathe, not looking at the screen, one hand extended out, one finger on the Y, pressing it over and over and over again as he desperately tried to win a single round. Did you?
No.
It's so terrible. We did not play BlazBlue anymore after that.
Yeah, that was the end of that. I bought a later version that I eventually returned just because no one was really interested in playing it with me. And a person who lived in the house at the time really hated all of the anime voice lines. But it was fixed. That part was fixed. And
they made like a whole new edition of the game basically just to patch out the ice cars.
No, they just patched it. That was a version came later. Had a bunch of characters and stuff in it. But anyway, on to my honorable mentions. I think it's interesting because I love fighting games. I just did my whole big speech at the beginning of this. If you guys want to go watch Violent Profiles, I will wax philosophical even more about fighting games. But a lot of my favorite fighting games, I don't have characters from on my list. Notably, Eternal Champions, Mace the Dark Age. And as far as my primary list goes, there's no one from Soul Calibur or Tekken on my list. And I do love those games. Mm-hmm. Injustice is a little different because, we didn't put a moratorium on it.
But it feels cheap. I like Batman. Oh, I also like Batman in the fighting game. I don't. I hate his mechanics. It really bothers me. I like Aquaman in those games.
But, they just didn't end up in my top 5. And I'm really a little bit surprised by that. But at the same time, a lot of those other fighting games, the more obscure ones that I like, just never got the time to simmer. I know who, well, and I say this, but Hisako is very new. I still think she's really cool. A couple of people on my list have not been in much of the games. But they made a big impression, and they came late enough that they, their personalities had time to flex and grow and breathe in a space.
Yeah, a lot of your very obscure fighting games you love are also pretty old, where they didn't really give much of a shit about that.
Well, or didn't have the capability to, or they were one-offs and they never got, more depth to them. But my honorable mentions. Keelik from Soul Calibur. I don't really care much about his character. He's fine. But
again, replaceable anime protagonist. There's 3 of them in Soul
I
Calibur.
like
They're
Reach,
friends.
and he has a staff.
Yeah.
I notably remember talking about being good with Keelik, and you doubted me slightly. It was a soft press of the X button. Mm-hmm. And you were like, all right, go ahead and show me. You've been hiding this Keelik this whole time? No. I whip your ass in this game. I'm very good. And I went, well, all right. And you were upset with me.
And then I played Maxi, and we had to write some wrongs. That's, by the way, that's Fox versus Fox Final Destination for us fighting game wise. Keelik v Maxi, Soul Calibur, let's go.
Vega's on the list. I mentioned him earlier. I've always been a fan of his character. I don't really care for his mechanics that much, especially today. Sergei Dragunov from Tekken, specifically Tekken Tag Tournament 2.
He's fun.
I don't like the changes they made to him in Tekken 7. But he doesn't say anything and he breaks your bones, and that's pretty cool. Hakan from Street Fighter 4, I believe. Wow, what a fun, weird mechanic. You just grease yourself up more and more and slide around the screen like a bouncy ball, and he's just so boisterous and...
Again, I like a guy who's having a good time.
Yeah, he's having a great time. I like Ermac from Mortal Kombat. I like Legion in general, and I think this is a really good interpretation of him. I also love it when stupid, fake bullshit gets turned into a real thing. I love that so much. And Ermac was shorthand for error macro, I believe.
And now he's a character.
And now he's a real character.
Instead of cooking with Ermac.
Ken Masters from Street Fighter. I like Shoto clones too. Ken's the best one.
Wrong, but okay.
All right, I will burning Hadouken you into oblivion.
You will. You're much better at that game.
Shoryuken, excuse me. Skullomania from Street Fighter Alpha and Arika Fighting Layer EX. He's just fun. Ibuki from Street Fighter, she's really cool. I like her moves a lot. Again, Street Fighter 5, I'm not fond of the changes they made. Oro from Street Fighter, he's I haven't played him in 5 yet. Is he out yet? I don't think he's out yet. He's part of the next pack. Very tempting to grab him. Voldo from Soul Calibur. I don't really have a favorite Soul Calibur character. Like, I have Keelik and Voldo because they stand out to me. But, like, they're all pretty good. There's, like, not enough deviation. Like, Astaroth kind of sucks unless you know his mechanics. Everyone else is fine.
Yep.
But Voldo, again, it's that psychological thing. Like,
yeah, he's a weirdo.
They're like, where are you attacking me from? Stop it! Quit humping things. Kano from Mortal Kombat. He's got good mechanics, don't get me wrong.
He's just the most bogan man in the Mortal Kombat universe.
The longer things go on, the better he gets. Cervantes from Soul Calibur. I loved his mechanics for a long time. He was one of my favorites. Rain from Mortal Kombat. See what I said earlier about Ermac, except this time he's also a Prince reference. And Zangief, because he's Zangief.
Yeah, that's fair.
One of my favorite quotes from a fighting game player, Brett from the Beard Bros, is people who tell me that Zangief sucks, I will then challenge them to a match with Zangief and show them. You just don't know how to play him. So let's move on to number one, man. Who's your number one slot here?
My number one slot is something of a reversal of, like, earlier slots in that I'm only middling fond of this character's mechanics. I'm okay at them. I'm pretty decent. I love the character. So he's number one. Mitsurugi from Soul Calibur. He is the first character I really loved from Soul Calibur because, I mean, he's a cool fucking samurai.
He's Samurai Wolverine.
He's Samurai Wolverine. Yeah. He is I love all the parts of his character development. I love the early parts where he thinks guns are bullshit, cheater bullshit, and he's going to prove that he's better than the cheater bullshit. I love when he gets older.
Get your dead shot.
I love when he gets older and becomes more wise. It's a very good... You like Wolverine? You like samurais? You like Mitsurugi? He's got a really fun set of mechanics. I'm not as fond of them in later games. I love the version in Soul Calibur 1, but in later games they changed it enough that I still like it, but I'm not as fond of it. It's a little too heavy on setup for my liking. Even though the setup, when you do it well, is fun as shit to watch happen.
I mean, you know, there is a certain amount of satisfaction to nailing Taki or Paul Phoenix, one of their charge-up moves. Just like, hey, your health bar's gone.
There's a very big satisfaction to being a fighting game version of Batosai the Man.
Yeah.
And he's just, like, he's probably one of the more well-done characters in terms of, like, emotional resonance in Soul Calibur, because White's right. Most of them are fine. They're not amazing characters. They're fine. Mitsurugi has a story that I vibe with, and so he gets the number one slot.
Honestly, it wasn't until later Soul Caliburs that I understood that the protagonists of the game were the young people.
Yeah, the three replaceable anime protagonists.
I thought it was Mitsurugi.
And you could believe that because he has the best emotional story arc. But no, he's a side character. What about you, sir? What's your number one?
I made an entire video leading up to this. If y'all want to go watch my favorite esoteric Street Fighter characters, it's an older one. It was my first Violent Profiles video. My editing's not that great, but it leads into why I love Eagle. From certain versions of Street Fighter Alpha 2, I think. It's been a long time since I've actually played. But what I said about Nightwolf.
Yep.
He just feels right in my hands. First time I played him, I was like, this is perfect. He uses Kali sticks, or Eskrima sticks, and beats a tattoo on your ass. I mean, he's fun. He's tall and lanky, so that even with these small weapons, he's got a decent reach. It's not the best, but it's decent. and he's fast, and he's standing like, hey, I'm a manly man. He's a giant Freddie Mercury reference, so we've got that Rain play in there, a musician I love being represented in a video game. He is the panacea for the Street Fighter timeline. Like, in his story mode in that game, he, like, fixes everything by talking to people. He will beat their ass and be like, Sagat, don't work for Bison. He's shitty. Let's fight Bison together and make a better place for all the people we love. And Sagat's like, you know what? You're right. He just swoops in and saves the day.
God, he's a fucking anime protagonist, but like not like a fucking shonen anime. Like he's like an adult, like a more adult anime protagonist.
He's the adult who comes in and handles everything, and then you think he sacrifices himself to save the day, but you find out near the end of the series that he actually escaped and lived on with his family, and you meet all of his daughters.
Yes.
Eagle is the perfection we should all aspire to, and if he was a horrifying monster, he would be number one with a fucking bullet. He's just everything I love about fighting games condensed into one character.
There we go. That's it. That's the list.
That's the podcast. We got more comic book ones coming up. We're going to do some more video game ones first, though, because, you know, variety is the spice of life.
And video games are a big part of both of our experiences. So.
They are. It's been, I don't want to say harder to narrow down these lists, but there's definitely a lot more characters to sift through in the video game world.
The next one's going to be a doozy. Everything's better when nerds talk about it.